My name is Jordan Nelson. I'm the gallery director at Women in Their Work. And this is a TalkAbout program. We produce a TalkAbout for each exhibition, and it's really a program that facilitates thought-provoking conversations. Typically, we ask our solo show artists to select a panel of folks who inspire them. But with this show, and tonight we have a special treat that we get to be in conversation with four exhibiting artists and really discover the overlap and the inspirations that are converging with their work. And guiding us through this process is our guest curator, Taylor Davis, who has thoughtfully imagined this exhibition and brought all of these artists together. So with that, I will let you take it away, Taylor.
Okay, thanks, Jordan. And thank you to the Women in Light team, Women in Their Work team for bringing together all of us here this evening. Thank you to all these artists for sharing space with me time and again. It has been a really great journey to just get a little glimpse into each of your artistic practices, into your minds, really, just kind of really getting to know you guys. This exhibition for me really came about just that way, wanting to get to know these artists a little bit better. And what came out of it was this amazing exploration of materiality that talked about anything from resistance and resiliency to interrogating past and present traumas. And it's been really amazing to see how all of these artists are touching on profound and sometimes heavy topics, but bringing a lightfulness, a colorfulness to the way we experience all these things. And I just want to say, first off, the feedback has been amazing that I've heard from everybody that's visiting the show. The way people are resonating with this work is just so humbling. And I'm just so proud of you all. So if you haven't seen the show yet, it is up until August 22nd at Women in Their Work here in Austin, Texas. So don't miss it. But with that said, let's just get into it. First and foremost, I would love for you guys to introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your background and really just what has inspired your artistic journey that you're on. And we'll popcorn this, so I'll let you self-select. So whoever's feeling called, who's feeling the call.
Well, since no one will speak up, I'll go on and say hi to everyone. I'm Kat Martinez, and I'm a multimedia, mixed media artist, and just kind of introduce my work and whatnot.
So your background
Oh,
and kind of your what's inspired your artistic practice.
absolutely. Yeah, so I'm originally from St. Louis, Missouri, and then I came down here in the South and really just fell in love with the environment, the culture. And coming down here, like in high school and whatnot, it was really, Houston was really impressionable, and it speaks to a lot of my work. But the work I explored here at Women in Their Work is work that kind of speaks more to my love of history. And I think that kind of drives me as an artist, just historical events in the African diaspora that we may not have known about, or lesser known things. And so that really like speaks to my work and the subject and things that I like to think about. But also, it kind of dips into my family history with having done research as I was working on different sculpture, found out in my family that one of our oldest known relatives that shows up in the census was a blacksmith on a plantation in Claiborne County, Mississippi in the 1830s. And I never knew why I was so drawn to work with steel. I worked with steel, previously, but it just maybe there's like a family connection there that knowing that family history, I'm driven to work and steal on a lot of my pieces that I create. So that's just a little bit about myself.
Thank you, Kat. Yeah, I'm really looking forward to diving more into your practice with steel and your love for history. I think that's been a great addition to our show too. So, anybody who's ready to go next?
Speak. Hello. Can you all hear me? Okay. My name is Chandrika Metivier, and my background is Haitian, Native American, Mexican. Those are that's my heritage. And for this artistic journey that has come about sort of um, randomly, prior to pursuing any of my creative endeavors, I was in school for um, political science, gearing up to go to law school. And right before finishing my undergrad, I decided to pivot into the arts. And I did not do so in school or through school. I instead just went intuitively into large, like collaborative creative projects in Houston. And I did that for a few years. And in 2019, I went to a drama school, which totally changed my perspective in what I wanted to pursue. Um, After COVID, though, and also getting that experience at the drama school, I came out, and during that, I'll go back a bit. I was starting to explore some installation works with my soft sculptures with Mylar, which totally started as a hobby and then developed into something more legitimate. Um, but yeah, through the drama school, I realized that I wanted to infuse the performance practice if I could. And now I've had a body of work built from the installation works and some public arts having to do with um, advocacy and mostly just the text-based paintings on public structures. Um, that intertwined with the installation work and now here with the performance, um, we're here and the work at Bending Light is a product of that. And I'd say that's my most current self, my most current practice. Um, so much more to explore. And yeah, it's been quite the journey. So I'm kind of just rolling with it. Thanks.
Thanks, Chandrika. Your performance element is going to be, I think, huge in this conversation. And I think something that I've started to see your performance as is a material in it of itself, right? In the ways in which we think about materiality, especially in this show. So I'm going to be really excited to kind of dive into that with you, and the ways that you're using that. So thank you for sharing. Uh, Anyone else?
Hey, I'm Ciara Elle Bryant. I am a multidisciplinary artist here in Dallas. I have been doing video installation and photography pieces for the last 15 years at this point. And they have culminated to these larger installations every time. But each of the pieces are usually site specific and they have either a recording of archiving history or culture, or now leaning towards a more physical, personal presence of how I'm moving through the world and those experiences. So that's what my work is about currently.
Thank you, Ciara. Again, amazing, amazing installations. Have always been drawn to them. And whenever I don't make it, I'm like super sad because I know you really create that space and you really bring your viewers into this world that you're creating. And I think you've done a great job with this show as well. So excited to talk through with that. Kaima.
I was trying to find the mute. Hi, Kaima Marie Akarue. Born and raised in Houston. The Houston influence is really strong in my pieces. I think urban culture is a source of influence. I kind of find this, I'm intrigued by the destruction of it all. I think that I started out as someone who drew and painted, and I would say that I am relatively new in the collage space as far as it being my primary form of practice. I like to call my work photo adjacent because I source a lot of the material myself, but I also use a lot of archival material and unconventional material like I'm on horrors.com looking at houses for sale just so I can get pictures of the crown molding. So there's a lot of just every source that I'm seeing has become patterns for me. And so, yeah, it's just a little bit about me.
Me also losing the mute button. Thank you, Kaima. Uh,
You're
yeah, with your work, just as soon as I stepped into your studio, I feel like the little architecture brain in me was just like, yeah, you get it. And the way that you're engaging with kind of real world materials and exploring that in your collages, seeing you create these environments is something super special, something super rare. I feel like that's happening right now. And so with that, I want to kind of jump in to our show, to our exhibit, what has brought us all together here. And you know, our show touches on a lot of different themes, but I think one thing that has risen to the top for me time and time again are these personal reflections of resilience and resiliency, whether it's kind of on the greater scheme culturally or really within oneself, things that we are battling internally. And there's also kind of this element of the interrogation of both the past and the present, right? I think a lot of us are flipping through. I think kind of it's kind of split down the middle a little bit. I see Kaima and Kat really like thinking about this historical element and really diving into that. And I see Ciara and Chandrika both kind of reflecting on kind of present tense and, you know, thinking about those ways that we are engaging in realities. And so my question for the group is really, how do you feel like maybe your work has been responding with or dealing with some of these themes? And then, you know, how are you creating a safe space within your practice to explore these themes, to talk about them? Because we all know that, you know, we are dealing with these realities every single day, but we're not always given that space to think about them, to explore them and express them openly. So, you know, what do you bring in your practice that creates that safe space, and how are you dealing with those themes that we talked about? And whosoever is feeling called.
I can talk first about time and memory is something that's really prevalent. Um, kind of shifting between black and white photos to color photos, just the materiality of what time is. The scam of time is what I call it. And I think that it helps me when I am discovering what it is that I'm doing. I think that there's a lot of artists that have more intention in the preliminary stages of the work. And I think that mine comes in the post. I kind of work really intuitively. And, I think about it as a puzzle that has no reference photo for me. And it's very chaotic. And I feel like my work mimics that kind of manic disposition that I'm in. It's kind of a reflection of what my brain's looking like right now. And I allow myself to process those things and not feel the pressure of having to reveal those answers prior. Because a lot of times it's questions that I didn't even know that I was questioning, right? And it's revealing answers that I didn't even know that I wanted. And so I rely a lot on the post of my work, seeing the patterns and really letting it reveal itself to me. And I think that is kind of speaking to the second question of this safe space. Um, I would say that my work isn't overtly challenging a lot of these narratives. I think that they're a lot more subtle, um, especially when it comes to capitalism and urbanism and just the identity politics that's kind of woven within those structures, culturally, um, ethnically, right, economically. I think those things they're there, but I also share the responsibility with the viewer just as much as I'm creating. It's their responsibility to make this narrative have meaning to them. So I think that that takes a lot of pressure off of me as well in this safe space.
Man, if you didn't just describe my brain that first half, I relate to that so heavy, the post and the patterns. And I think we talked a lot about this alignment. And yeah, just thank you for giving voice to things that I feel like I have not been able to express sometimes. We're like, well, how do you operate? And I'd be like, I just kind of let it all fall into place. So thank you for that. That was amazing. Anybody else would like to share?
I'll go. I'll answer the question. So the safe space thing is very interesting because recently, I'll say in the last 2-ish years, with a lot of looking and experiencing art in specific spaces or not in traditional spaces, I've started to figure out that some people can make and get away with things that are just whatever. And other people are extremely intentional from how it looks, how it feels, how it smells, and what your body's response is to it. So, like creating installations or even just thinking about a singular object, piece, sculpture, um, is really forcing me as an artist to look and being like, okay, if I had to experience this, how would I feel? How would I want to feel? Does this make me feel this way? Does it make me feel heard, happy, warm, whatever? And having to navigate that in the process of making the piece. Like I said before, most of the stuff is site specific. So like I never know what is gonna happen until I'm like, all right, I'm done, and I walk away and it's there, it's finished. But the whole time I'm doing that, I am always thinking about how is the person going to experience this? Like, and what do I want them to deal with in that space? And sometimes like it is subtle and sometimes it's not so subtle. And you just gotta navigate through how that works. But yeah, that's a good one.
No, I feel like I've really resonate with that as well, but I think there's this journey to creating safe space that it's not a linear journey, and it's kind of one that you kind of go back and forth. You go 2 steps back just to go 1 step forward. And I think that at that point you're checking in with yourself, right? And it's like, does this feel good? Does this feel right? And so there's like a lot of understanding in that. And so yes, thank you. Thank you.
I was going to add, kind of on the note that Kaima um, brought up about creating intuitively. I think coming from that unconventional, non-traditional position that I hold has helped, because I have the privilege of I don't navigate with the thought of how is this going to be digested in the art world. I actually never consider that. When I read about, like, say, the press for this show, because this is like one of the first official shows that I've really been a part of, and reading how people yes, how people engage with the work, I realize I'm like, wow, I know there are some artists who create out of that space, like they are anticipating what the viewers are going to see and how it will be critiqued and judged. Um, Whereas because I've been creating from a space of like knowing how but not why, and I'm defining it after, and when I see it, I'm like, oh, I know why I did this. Um, there's like pressure that I do not feel. The pressure is mostly due to like the fabrication, like how am I going to make this? I had this vision in my mind, but I have X amount of money. I don't have a trailer. Whatever the case is, it's always bigger than I can fathom. Um, I get through that through the adaptability, which develops through like, well, we could probably find a YouTube tutorial, see how to build this 15-foot sculpture out of cardboard. And so, yeah, I think coming from that place and then joining these more traditional spaces is now teaching me. You know, I really am learning as I go. Um, but I'm thankful that I don't have that background because when I enter these spaces, sometimes I see the scars that people collect from being judged and overassessed, and like, okay, well, that critic said this about me, or like this whole body of work was just dismissed from this entity, so it must not be good. I don't come from that place. I kind of accept what I make and then I move on, and I know that it's evolving, and that's enough for me. Yeah.
So I was really inspired when you approached me and talked about the show, and as well as thinking about work that I've made um, in regards to embracing light that shines light on something that's like lesser known, or looking at it from that aspect, like not necessarily just physical light, but just something that shines light on history we don't know and things that will help us to understand why we are the way that we are. We can always look into our history and find those things that help explain like patterns and things that, we repeat as humans, and how we approach things differently, maybe than a particular ancestor, if you know someone in particular, things like that. And so the work, it was driven on these impulses, and it's kind of like the way that I make work. I'm driven and I have like a feeling about something, and so that's how I choose my materials. Or if the work has a certain pattern or rhythm in the way and things are laid out, um, I approach my work with that impulsive way of thinking about that pattern, and how to lay things out. And so, excuse me. And so, as I reference a lot is like to the West African tradition of the griot, of this like oral tradition of storytelling. But when thinking about the work, making it in a physical form, it's like reimagined because everyone is bringing their own thoughts and history and past to when they, the way, different ways in which they think about things. But I like that the work can help people to just kind of like think about things and put themselves in someone else's shoes, possibly, and just really shine light and on history, or shine light on just a fleeting moment that happened, like the piece about Martha. It was a fleeting moment. It was just a step in time that some people shared there and were able all to witness together, and just capturing that moment of the way it made us feel and the conversations behind that. Um, the work was driven on that. Sorry. That's it.
Thank you, Kat. Actually, that really led into my question for you. I know you're coughing right now. If you I did have a follow-up. Um, I'll give you a second. I'll give you a second. But I mean, I think you brought up a great point, and you know, just as Kaima was saying, this kind of like working through something, or even Chandrika, just this working through something and then understanding the why after, super resonate with that, and have been trying to actually lean into that for me a lot more, especially because, you know, myself personally, I also don't come from a, you know, academic or artistic trained background. And so I think I approach curating like very differently than a lot of people who do come from that background. And so I really just look for the patterns in the work and in the people I work with. And I kind of let that. And so light was just one of these things that all of you are dealing with in just these very different nuanced ways. And I just thought it was really spectacular how everybody was dealing with just playing with light or manipulating light or using light or shining light. And it was just like, you know, maybe separately, not something, maybe something, a smaller piece, but I felt like together, all of this work, it was a special part for me, thinking about all your work together, especially when I really started to take that on. Um, and so, Kat, I wanted to ask you, since your work does deal and encompass a wide range of topics. So, you know, all of your pieces dealing from just like your piece about Marfa, preserving memory. You talk a lot about the intersection of art and craft, and then you even really dive into, you know, histories of generational trauma. And so I wanted you to even just expand a little bit on your process for working with these materials, and how those materials that you select contribute to conveying the depth and the nuance of all these subjects that you want to talk about, especially since the materials you work with, you know, ain't no amateur working with steel, cutting steel in the fabrication shop. You know, it's not really something you're just picking up. It is very much a honed skill, a craftsman, one that you yourself have expressed, having a lot of familial and cultural ties to. So, yeah.
Oh yeah. So just touching back on that, like a lot of times when I am working, most of the things will be made out of steel, but I find myself like also incorporating and combining things that would seem like it would not work with it, or complete opposites where I could have a piece of steel and working with fiber, or steel and working with paper, and just different mixes of this, depending on the vibe of the story in which the work is telling. And it takes on its own story, you know. Different people, you know, like I was saying before, coming with their own background, it really helps, you know, to draw out imagination in individuals. And I love that because, you know, I think about our work as we put it out in the world, it takes on a life of itself. We can't control that narrative, and that's fine. And I love that you may look at the Africa Town piece, but then you might see something else within yourself, within your own community. And so just to be able to think about those deeper things and just have like this layered type way of acting, the work acting is just, it's important to me. And I like to, you know, whereas I like to give attention to certain things, I like that it takes on a life of its own. And yeah, the family history really motivates the work, and motivates the reason. There's something I feel like just internal. And so I'm trying different processes as well, not only the welding, but actual blacksmithing, using the heat and the fire. And just, I go into like these rabbit holes, and I won't be much longer. And I started researching the way that there was an industrial revolution in the 16 to 1700s in Africa, from in the Congo and the Nigerian area. And when like looking at my roots, and I start looking at that intersection there where they were like, they had this big industrial revolution, and thinking about a grandfather, a great grandfather being noted in the census in the 1830s for the first time, seeing someone in my family going back that far in history, and knowing that he was there on the farm working as a blacksmith and having family stories as well, talked to me by my mother's father and everything. It just really, hearing him talk about his grandfather, it just really like resounds and helps motivate me, and makes the work all come together with talking about the story, but also dealing with my family's past.
Thank you. Yeah, that it's been great to just see that explored in your work. And I think that that personal tie, that personal investigation is just really, really rich. And so I'm super honored to have those pieces in our show. And I think you also really brought out something important. I'm sorry, my dog jumped up here, y'all. I try not to react. You know, you brought
Where are those eyes coming from?
you brought up something important, which was, you know, looking closer and seeing something that you might not have seen, or you maybe didn't think that you see. And I think that really ties in well to Kaima's work. And, you know, I really have been expressing that. I'm sorry, get down, please. Lost my train of thought. Um, every time I talk to somebody about your work, I think that they were like, I thought I saw this, but I saw something else, or I was looking at it one way, but as the more I looked at it, you know, all of these other things kind of appeared to me. And I think that that's just the brilliant way that you're able to layer space and light and all of these things that we're talking about. And so my question for you, Kaima, is, you know, you're dealing with a lot of these different physical spaces. We've talked about this before as well. And you have this sort of layering of urban materiality, you know, through both found and original photography. That's both a physical reference, but also this historical reference. So something that we can see and maybe something that we may have known. And so I would love for you to just talk about the importance of moving through those spaces, and how you might want your viewers to think or move differently through, you know, the real world and the space that we go through. Yeah.
Yeah, so, just like Kat was saying, the richness of my personal, identity is embedded, throughout, whether it's, my mom's eye somewhere, or, it's just like little Easter eggs that if you know the context, it kind of like enhances what you're feeling. But in a weird way, these spaces are in no way biographical, even though they appear to be sometimes. I mean, I'm using, images of my dad and I, right? But they're really just kind of mirrors. I feel like though our experiences are not linear, um, they are similar, right? And so I feel like these spaces are very much engineered to be heterotopias uh, within this real world, right? It's like, what is life? Like everything's a scam to me, right? Everything was told that it is what it is, so that's what we accept it to be, right? And I think that I am rebellious at heart, even though I do enjoy structure. I do, you know, obviously, right? My pieces are very structured. I do enjoy confines, right? But I do like pushing, myself through those things. And I think that when the viewer is looking at my work, I want them to have a kinetic experience. It's very important for them to stay very flat compositions, but there should be movement. I want you to feel like you're moving in and out of rooms, right? That it's this house that keeps going forever and ever, or that this is just a snapshot, but just because, the irregularity of my edges just creates this idea that it expands beyond what you're seeing. And I think that is life, right? I think that moments are fleeting. I think that moments are distortions of how we perceive them to be, anyways. And I think that everybody's experience is going to be different. And that's what I enjoy. And I think that sometimes, I started out as a portrait artist, and, you concentrate on the subject. But when I, navigated into this space of collage, I wanted to pay as much attention to environment when it comes to identity politics and how much, those things surrounding us, help construct our identity as well.
Yeah, I think that very much is shining through a lot of your work, and it's been great to see people pick up on that and then walk away with something that they maybe weren't expecting to walk away from. I also I also really resonate with a lot of the kind of portalness that you have in your work. The way it's kind of like drawing you to a space and bringing you through something, and then you kind of come out as, I don't know, hopefully somebody different, somebody better, experiencing that. At least I did, I will say. So it's been great to see it. And then also, I think that your work with collage is so refreshing, with the kind of collage that's happening right now, and this kind of world building that you're doing with your collage has been really great to witness. And I think that there's also this, like, we kind of heard it before with Kat and you as well, this personal reflection, and that kind of brings me into Ciara's question, um, where you're presenting just this extreme breadth of emotional ranges, and your work specifically is dealing with the sort of the resiliency in oneself. And I don't think not a single person did not resonate with your piece, and the message that you are conveying and the ways you're bringing people into your own personal journey. And then, we've talked also about how your practice really involves creating these site-specific pieces, this really truly immersive work. And so I would like you to touch on a little bit about just how you want viewers to interact with your work when you're creating these site-specific installations. How do you like people moving into that? And then kind of like a second part question is about your video piece and your process of like weaving together memories and, creating like really strikingly visually striking work through this sort of video collage, and how you're bringing people into this personal journey.
Okay, so Aya is a collection of memories that I think I remember, and recordings of audio from conversations that I had over the last, I want to say, 6-ish years. At this point now, it's like 6-ish years. And it was because of a traumatic event that happened in the space, the first original space that I showed the piece. And I had to show in that space. There was no option to move or change. And I was like, I don't know what I could put here because nothing feels right at that point. So I sat down to make the video at first. I had some portraits already taken that I knew was going to be the idea, but I had to figure it out, and I kept playing Sade, Soldier of Love, which is where some of the text comes from, and the phrase I'm still alive, but I'm still alive kept like popping up, and I was like, let me sit with this. Let me sit with this. What does this mean for that actual space? And then it just kind of turned into going through audio clips and listening to this one 30-second clip that was between me and a former partner, and how that kind of guided from that point in 2018, 19 to where I ended up now, with that last partner and all this other stuff. But yeah, all that to say that it started with, a song and an audio note and one image of a sunflower that kind of evolved into this combination of imagery that I had saved and imagery that I made for that specific piece. And then the title Aya is in reference to the Adinkra symbol for fern, and the phonetic version of it is seeing Aya. So like actually seeing, so you have to look. And I just kept being like, I have to look at myself to make this work. But when I first showed the version of Aya, it was very face to face. They're looking at each other. And then this version, it is splayed out, which is interesting to feel like, okay, first I was really closed off with having to deal with it. Now it is very much open and out there. So like this version of it existing in this space at Women in Their Work, you have to read the whole piece. And a lot of people will probably like have a little like, wait, this is happening, but this is also happening. But why is it happening simultaneously? And it's like I'm forcing your brain to read, but also like where do you want to go? Where do you feel like constrained to experience? And then adding the sculptural version of Aya, which is in its third iteration at this point, Aya Juke being the chair that has the baby's breath on it, which is referenced in also the video and the portrait, and being constrained, it had to exist in a way that I can say, this is the feeling and it looks like this. And if this was the only thing in the room, this is what you would imagine Aya would feel like, without seeing the portraits, without seeing the video, which, so that's how that all came together. But then reading it with the sculpture, the video, the portraits in these reflective mirrors, as well as the small, like, I call them holes of memories, but small holes of memories of those portraits. They're all in relationship to each other, and they can be read on its own and with all of it together.
Thank you. As you can see, my dog wants to participate as well, so we're gonna let her just do her thing. But one thing I just heard that like maybe is like a revelation for me is also the ways that all of you are dealing with memory in your own way. And it's been, and I think it's kind of something that I maybe knew and maybe understood isolated, but really seeing it together, how there is this collective memory that we're all engaging with. And I also feel like, me, myself, in my practice, I think I deal a lot with that, understanding this personal history, but also this collective history and kind of how it shapes us and how we move through our spaces. And one thing also, Ciara, like I love that you really aren't confined to one materiality or kind of one mode of medium or expression. And that's another really great big theme that I've seen here and really brings me to Chandrika and your practice. And so for me, like getting to know you and your work, and I have seen that, your practice is really one that is rooted in this activism and in this having a voice, and really, for me, asking the viewer to push the boundaries of how they might understand something, how they might understand different points of view. And what I love about the ways in which you use yourself, your performance, sort of this kind of this performance as this materiality, this performance of shaping experiences. And then also, in conjunction, which I think the show was really amazing to do, like showing them in conjunction with this large scale sculpture, something that super dynamic, really broke through the space. And then you're also kind of asking this viewer to, sit with a very personal, a very personal performance piece. And so I would love you to talk about the ways that you're using both performance and large scale installation to move through these conversations, and offer up perspectives that may not be prioritized, and kind of give, new points of view.
Thank you for that. So with the installation works, seeing them exist within gallery space and how like dramatic they become versus how they would look on the street when I would put them up as public arts for all to see. It gave me a better understanding of why people use the gallery or traditional art spaces to have these conversations and do these call to actions, or put up work that will have or cause this sort of discussion or narrative, um, while tackling these complex issues. um, but it's interesting because the installation work, again, it did not, that was not the initial purpose. I was not using it to highlight such matters. After I got in trouble for doing, the text-based work, which is basically just, painting words on public structures, I realized, maybe there's a way to use the mylar sculptures to symbolically represent these matters, and it's still pretty literal. I'm trying to get out of being so literal, but I think part of my approach is that way because my lack of training. I'm so literal. I'm like, well, if I want to convey like what's going on over there, if I want to convey destruction, I should build a missile, or if I want to highlight ongoing wars, I should simulate a crash, or like what the strike is. And so yes, the mylar sculptures are unique and they're eye-catching. um i'm still I'm looking to challenge myself more. Like I'm almost wanting to retire from that and move. We'll see how that idea and signature can evolve, or it can exist and I can dive into other mediums like performance, um, which I was so grateful, still am, to see how that digitized performance had the impact that I was hoping it would. Um, when reading about performance arts history, I read that many activists would use live art in order to escape the potential of being arrested, or just it couldn't be criminalized because it came from you, right? So if you speak it and it's there and it exists in that time and you leave, it's like, did it even happen? You had to be there, that was the moment, that was the thing, no harm done. And I'm realizing that passion, but also skill that I have to storytell, I can utilize that in lieu of, graffiti, or things that will get me in trouble or arrested. I can use performance to convey those same messages. And this was the first time I got to do that. And that was a monologue that I learned at the drama school. So again, like these things I can, present that I've already collected, and repurpose them, kind of like how I repurpose, recycled materials as the base for my sculptures. I guess that's probably like a main theme in my work as far as, being resourceful, adaptable, cheap, or cost efficient. And so, yeah, I think I'm excited to see how the performance aspect of my work allows me to touch on these topics in a more refined way, as opposed to, getting myself in trouble because I've already done that and I don't need to keep doing that. I rather speak my mind and be free than, be silenced. So, yeah.
Yeah, I love just hearing about your journey as an artist and really just how you are continuing to expand and grow. And one thing I love about you is like, you know, you're always reading every time I see you. And I feel like I love seeing that because I feel like in the short time that we've known each other, I've seen you directly like pull that in, especially with the performance piece, which is, you know, not just a performance piece, but it's a video sculpture. It's like the video art, and it's so layered in everything that it can provide as a physical piece. But then there's also just this element of your performance and your background there, and this conjunction with the live sculpture. And I think that you know, you also are leading me into kind of one of our last questions as we're coming up on the hour here. But it's for the group. And Chandrika, if you want to start off, is just like, you know, what are you looking forward to in your practice as you move forward? You know, in this journey of yours, what's exciting? What's exciting you? What are you excited for? And kind of, you know, what can we as humble admirers look forward to from you?
Thank you again, Taylor Davis. Um, I'm excited about this pivot into performance arts. I think that my drama and the theater training will finally be put to good use, and I will not have to conform to Hollywood. I can just present this work as me, and it will exist, and I will be fulfilled. Um, you got to see a bit of the next work that I am cooking up, and man, I'm diving in, I'm drowning in it, and I'm so excited. It's it's a third adaptation of a performance that I did that was not filmed. It was technically my first performance, and it's of Act Two of a book or a play called Telephone by Ariana Reigns. And this woman, she's a brilliant woman with a fractured mind. She's schizophrenic, and Babette, there's a case study done on her by Carl Jung, and Ariana's professor did a study on her in her book called The Telephone Book, and Ariana was inspired to write this play on her. And when I read it, I was immediately called to work on this piece. It's about 5,500 words. It's a one woman play. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to making two more adaptations to this and really seeing how how I can master this, but also make it my own. I don't want to just do it for the sake of it being this impressive text, because it is. Um, I, I'm 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 interested in world building and how can I create this work, given, you know, the author gave me her permission to do whatever I want with it. How can it be, you know, all me, the Chandrika version? So that's coming up with the contemporary Austin, and I am so excited.
Yes, amazing. I'm excited about it too. Let's go. Yes, anybody else? Again, you know, what are you excited about? What are you looking forward to, you know, moving through your practice, but also anything coming up that we can tune in for you?
Well, I'm going to be exploring different materials with steel and combining it with glass. And so I have a show coming up in October. Keep posted on my Instagram account, but it's at the Atlantic Center of the Arts in New Smyrna Beach, Florida. And there I'll be showing that experimental work where I'll be combining the steel and the glass pieces.
Yeah, I'm really excited to see some of your glass work too. So it's been exciting. I know you've been working on that for a while too.
I I'm not excited to make work, actually. I'm exhausted, as I would say. I have two shows coming up. One is a very large solo show, and the time frame is getting closer and closer, and I have yet to make a single thing. So here we go again. Done it 50 million times. I could do it again. But I also have a huge installation that is very temporary, that'll happen during Aurora's biennial, which is in November here in Dallas. It's only up for 48 hours essentially. So that's a really large piece that I am thinking about that I have not completely figured out yet. But that is on the horizon. I think one of the things I always have to navigate is when not to make and when to just continue to research and plan. And for the last year, 2 years, I've been in a consuming mindset of just like prepping for stuff, but not actually action yet. But now I have to make something out of nothing. So that'll be my thing for the next couple of weeks is prepping for 2 shows with no work.
Well, we can all be excited for you. That's really dope. And yes, I very humbly resonate with just like the sitting and then the production and then like navigating that in our hustle culture era. It is very exhausting. So yes.
Yeah, that resonates with me as well. I think that my pattern of creating is very similar. It's very manic. I think it's like borderline a mood disorder too. Like I will create and then like I don't want to anymore. I'm productive in other ways, but you know, creating is just such a exhaustive process because it just takes so much out of you. But like you, yes, I have 2 solo shows in September, beginning of September, end of September, and a group show in October. And most of the work is finished for all of them, but still. And then my last year of grad school, so that's kind of another layer of exhaustion. And I think excitement's a weird word for me. I don't really experience excitement the way it's universally received. But something that I will be pushing is more of like the finished form of my work, pushing more of that structural element and how the work is perceived. Is something that I'm probably going to be exploring more, especially, you know, in the next coming year. But yeah.
Wow, Kaima, it sounds like you have tons of free time on your hands. I don't know how
Well,
you do it. All of this sounds just like super thrilling. I'm so glad that you guys are getting your flowers, and I cannot wait to see literally all of you guys just show up and show out. So we will definitely be sharing and promoting all of you and your amazing accomplishments. And since we're coming up on the hour, Jordan, I'll just quickly maybe let people know who's watching, you know, what they can expect from the rest of Bending Light. So we will have this Sunday another virtual event. DJ Wildflower will be doing a live stream DJ set in the gallery that she is specially curating based on her experience walking through the show, which it was just amazing to hear how much she resonated with your work. And she's creating a special kind of sonic curated vibe for Sunday at 4 p.m. So tune into that. Next Wednesday, Austin Run Club. If you are in the city of Austin and you like to run at 6:30 in the morning, you can join us at Bending Light, where I will be giving a little walkthrough of Bending Light. And we're going to go on a jog. I don't know how long it's going to be, but I'm going to try to keep up. I'm going to do my best. I'm not a runner. And then on the 15th, our very own Chandrika is going to bless us with a performance in the space. And so really bringing their piece, to us physically, and really getting a little taste of what they're going to be doing at the Contemporary, a preview, if you will, of their of their many talents. And a closing show. Yep, I was like, there's one more. We're having a closing show on August 22nd. It is a Thursday. I also forgot to mention Chandrika's work is also going to be on third Thursday. It's third Thursday or second Thursday?
Third Thursday.
Third Thursday, which is an Austin late night art event where galleries all over town stay open later. And then the next Thursday will be our closing show, and it's Austin's amazing Black queer DJ collective, Do Not Disturb, will be spinning for us. And it should be just like a really beautiful, way to kiss and say goodbye. Ciara, I'm gonna bring that sage. We didn't get it in the beginning, but we're gonna get it at the end. So we're gonna sage and bless, and just say thanks.
Something in there. A little bit something.
A little something. But yeah, I just want to say thank you. This experience has been incredibly rewarding for me. And it's been just like kind of great to see how it's been received. I'm literally making a scrapbook because we can do that because we have actual printed articles about how much people love y'all's work. So I'm up here cutting out pieces of the Chronicle. And so it just brings really, brings me a lot of joy to share this space with you guys and share the work with others. So thank you again, humbly. Thank you to Women in Their Work, to Anne and Diane and Jordan, who've been an incredibly supportive team. Probably one of the best supportive teams that I've ever worked with. It's been really great that you guys have allowed these amazing artists to shine. So with that, it's 8:07, and I'll let you guys close it out if anybody else.
You closed it out beautifully. You said all the things.
Great.
Thank you so much, Taylor. Thank you to all of y'all for being here tonight and being in conversation. We appreciate all of you so much. And hope to see anyone at the gallery soon. We have a lot of programming, so come on by.